Welcome back to our channel. Are you holding on to coins that could be worth thousands, or even millions, of dollars? In this video, we reveal the most valuable US coins ever found. Let's start this.
Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. Just 1 cent, something most people would toss into a drawer, drop between couch cushions, or leave behind at a checkout counter without a second thought. But what if that tiny copper coin carried a story so powerful, so rare, and so valuable that it could completely change the way you see money forever? Today, we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and misunderstood coins in American history. The United States of America 1961 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile stares calmly into the distance, just as it has on pennies for generations. But looks can be deceiving, and in the world of coin collecting, the smallest details can make the biggest difference. This penny was born during a time of transformation in the United States, a period filled with political tension, technological ambition, and cultural change. And somehow, this single cent managed to carry that entire era within its metal. The year 1961 was not just another year on the calendar. America was stepping into a new decade, guided by a young president and fueled by dreams of space exploration, civil rights progress, and global leadership. The Denver Mint, identified by the small but powerful D Mint mark, was working at full speed, producing millions of coins for everyday use. But among those countless pennies, a very small number would later rise above the rest. The Lincoln 1-cent penny from 1961 with the D Mint mark was struck during the final years of the classic wheat reverse design. On the front, Lincoln's portrait represents unity and endurance. On the back, the two wheat stalks frame the words that symbolize national strength and faith. This design was already historic by the time this penny was minted, and collectors today see it as a bridge between old American craftsmanship and the modern era. What truly makes this coin fascinating is not just its design, but its condition, its striking quality, and the rare characteristics that some examples possess. Most of these pennies circulated heavily. They passed through countless hands, bought newspapers, candy bars, and cups of coffee. Over time, they became scratched, worn, and faded. But a select few were preserved in extraordinary condition, untouched by time, saved either by chance or by someone who sensed their future importance. Collectors know that condition is everything. A penny that looks nearly perfect, with sharp details, original luster, and no signs of wear, can transform from pocket change into a historical treasure. The 1961 D penny is especially exciting because high-grade examples are incredibly difficult to find. The Denver Mint focused on quantity, not perfection, which means flawless specimens are rare survivors. Even more intriguing are the subtle variations and striking anomalies that specialists search for. Differences in die quality, strike strength, and surface texture can separate an ordinary coin from an extraordinary one. Under magnification, collectors examine Lincoln's hair, the crispness of the lettering, and the fine lines in the wheat ears. These tiny elements tell a story of how the coin was made and whether it stands above the millions of others like it. This penny also holds emotional value. For many collectors, it represents nostalgia, a connection to childhood coin jars, or the first penny album they ever filled. For others, it is a symbol of American resilience, minted during a time when the nation was balancing hope and uncertainty. Coins like this are not just metal. They are time capsules. As the coin market evolved, interest in Lincoln since exploded. Collectors began paying closer attention to dates and mint marks that were once ignored. The 1961 D penny slowly gained recognition, especially among advanced collectors, who understood how rare top-grade examples truly are. Auction houses started highlighting exceptional specimens, and suddenly, this humble cent was commanding attention it had never received before. The thrill of discovery plays a huge role here. Imagine searching through rolls of old pennies, scanning each one carefully, hoping to find that perfect strike. The possibility alone keeps collectors passionate. And when a pristine 1961 D penny appears, it sends waves of excitement through the numismatic community. It is proof that even in a world flooded with mass-produced currency, rarity can still exist. Another layer of value comes from historical preservation. Museums and private collections seek coins that best represent their era. A high-quality example of this penny captures the look and feel of early 1960s America in a way no photograph ever could. It reflects the technology, materials, and artistic standards of the time. For investors, coins like this represent stability and long-term potential. Unlike paper assets, rare coins do not depend on corporations or interest rates. Their value is rooted in scarcity, demand, and history. As fewer high-grade examples remain available, competition among collectors increases, pushing values higher over time. But beyond money, there is something magical about knowing that a single cent, once worth almost nothing, can now command respect and admiration. It challenges our assumptions about value. It reminds us that history often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. It looks ordinary, small, and easy to overlook. Most people wouldn't think twice before tossing it into a jar, a drawer, or even leaving it behind on a counter. But what if that tiny copper coin carried a story powerful enough to shake the world of coin collectors, historians, and investors alike? Today, we dive deep into one of the most fascinating Lincoln cents ever struck, the United States of America 1964 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that quietly bridges American history, economic change, and hidden value. The year 1964 was a turning point for the United States. The nation stood at the crossroads of tradition and transformation. Civil rights movements were reshaping society, technology was advancing rapidly, and America's economy was evolving in ways that would affect everyday life, right down to the coins in people's pockets. Amid this backdrop, millions of Lincoln pennies were struck, yet only a small number would later rise above the rest to become legendary. The Lincoln 1-cent has always been more than just currency. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1964, Lincoln's portrait had already been a familiar face for decades, symbolizing honesty, unity, and resilience. But what makes the 1964 D Mint Mark penny special isn't just the image, it's the story behind how and why it was made. The Denver Mint, represented by the small D Mint mark on the coin, played a critical role in meeting the nation's demand for circulating coinage. During the early 1960s, the United States experienced a severe coin shortage. Rising silver prices caused people to hoard coins, fearing their metal value might exceed their face value. While pennies didn't contain silver, they were still affected by the overall shortage, forcing the U.S. Mint to produce cents in enormous quantities. As a result, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies in 1964. On the surface, that massive production might suggest the coin is common and inexpensive. But here's where things get interesting. In numismatics, rarity isn't always about how many coins were minted. It's about how many survive in exceptional condition. Most 1964 D Lincoln cents were heavily circulated. They passed through countless hands, scraped against keys, dropped on sidewalks, and spent years in pockets and cash registers. Over time, their surfaces wore down, their details softened, and their original luster faded. Finding one today is easy. Finding one in pristine, near-perfect condition is an entirely different story. Collectors pay close attention to strike quality, surface preservation, and original mint luster. A sharply struck 1964 D penny with blazing red color and flawless surfaces is incredibly difficult to locate. Even microscopic imperfections can dramatically affect a coin's grade and value. That's why professional coin grading services play such an important role in determining worth. Another layer of intrigue comes from errors and anomalies. During periods of high production pressure, mistakes were more likely to occur. Slight die variations, misalignments, or unusual planchet characteristics can elevate an otherwise ordinary coin into a collector's dream. While not every 1964D penny contains such features, the possibility keeps collectors searching through rolls and collections even decades later. The metal composition of the 1964 Lincoln cent also adds to its appeal. This penny was struck in a time before major composition changes took place. It contains a high percentage of copper, giving it that warm reddish tone collectors love. Later pennies would shift to different metal blends, making earlier copper cents more desirable, both aesthetically and historically. What truly separates this coin from countless others is how it captures a moment frozen in time. It reflects an America still grounded in traditional minting methods, but standing on the edge of modernization. It represents the last full year before the Coinage Act of 1965 dramatically altered U.S. coin production, removing silver from circulating coinage and changing the landscape forever. For collectors, owning a 1964D Lincoln cent in exceptional condition is like owning a perfectly preserved snapshot of American history. It's not just about age, it's about survival. Each flawless example is a survivor of decades of circulation, economic shifts, and changing public attitudes toward money. The excitement around this coin isn't limited to seasoned numismatists. New collectors are often drawn in by the idea that a humble penny could hold significant value. It sparks curiosity, encouraging people to look more closely at their change and learn the deeper stories hidden within everyday objects. This coin also demonstrates a powerful lesson. Value isn't always obvious at first glance. Something small and familiar can become extraordinary when rarity, condition, and history align. That's why the 1964D Lincoln penny continues to be discussed, researched, and sought after in auctions and private collections. As time passes, high-grade examples become even scarcer. Coins don't improve with age. They can only remain the same or deteriorate. Each year that goes by makes pristine specimens harder to find, pushing their desirability even higher. This steady increase in demand, paired with limited supply, is what drives exceptional prices. Collectors often speak about the thrill of discovery, the moment when they realize a coin they're holding is something special. The 1964D Lincoln cent embodies that thrill. It invites curiosity, rewards patience, and proves that even the smallest denomination can carry enormous significance. And now, after all the history, craftsmanship, scarcity, and collector passion surrounding this remarkable penny, we arrive at the number that truly captures attention. In top-tier condition, with exceptional preservation and grading, this unassuming 1-cent coin has reached an astonishing value of $49,283. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand. It looks ordinary at first glance, something you might have once tossed into a jar or slipped between couch cushions. But this is no ordinary coin. This is the United States of America 1970D mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a small piece of metal carrying a massive story, deep mystery, and a value that has stunned collectors around the world. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world of this legendary penny. Not just its history, but why collectors whisper about it, why experts study it closely, and why a single cent can become a life-changing treasure. So settle in, because this story proves that sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest surprises. The year 1970 was a turning point in American history. The country was changing fast, socially, politically, and economically. And right in the middle of all that change, the United States Mint continued its quiet tradition of producing coins for everyday use. The Lincoln 1-cent penny, first introduced in 1909, had already become one of the most recognizable coins in the nation. Featuring the proud profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the front, it symbolized unity, strength, and perseverance. Now let's talk about that small but powerful detail, the D Mint mark. This single letter tells us that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Millions of pennies rolled out of Denver in 1970, intended for circulation, for buying newspapers, candy, or being dropped unknowingly into pockets and purses. Most of them lived unremarkable lives. But a tiny number became something extraordinary. What makes the 1970 D Lincoln penny so captivating is not just its age or design, but the subtle secrets hidden within certain examples. To the untrained eye, it looks just like any other penny from that era. But collectors know better. They understand that within this issue, there are rare variations, unique characteristics, and minting quirks that can transform a simple coin into a legendary collectible. The coin itself is composed primarily of copper, giving it that warm reddish tone collectors love. In 1970, pennies were still made with a high copper content, which already makes them special compared to later zinc-based cents. When preserved in excellent condition, the surfaces can glow with original mint luster, almost as if time decided to leave it untouched. But condition is only one part of the story. What truly elevates certain 1970 D pennies into elite status are the rare minting anomalies and striking characteristics. During the minting process, dies were prepared, polished, and sometimes altered. In rare cases, mistakes happened. These mistakes are not flaws to collectors. They are treasures. They represent moments when the minting process went slightly off script, creating something unique that can never be replicated again. Collectors carefully examine these pennies under magnification, looking for details that set them apart. The sharpness of Lincoln's portrait, the clarity of the date, the strength of the mint mark, and the overall eye appeal all play a role. Even the smallest difference can mean the difference between a common coin and a jaw-dropping discovery. There is something thrilling about the idea that this coin may have once passed through countless hands, unnoticed, before finally being recognized for what it truly is. Maybe it sat in a drawer for decades. Maybe it was part of a childhood coin collection that gathered dust. Or maybe it was discovered by someone who simply decided to look a little closer. That is one of the reasons this penny captures the imagination. It represents possibility. It tells us that history is not always locked away in museums. Sometimes, it's hiding in plain sight. The Lincoln penny has always held a special place in American culture. Abraham Lincoln is remembered as one of the nation's greatest presidents, a symbol of honesty and resilience. Having his image on the 1-cent coin makes every penny feel like a tiny tribute. When you combine that legacy with the intrigue of a rare 1970 D issue, the result is something truly special. Collectors around the world search relentlessly for standout examples of this coin. Auctions become battlegrounds of passion, where bidders compete not just with money, but with determination and love for the hobby. Each serious collector knows that finding the right penny is about more than value. It's about owning a piece of history that few others can claim. Stories circulate within the numismatic community about people who discovered these pennies unexpectedly. Someone checking an old roll of coins. Someone inheriting a collection. Someone simply curious enough to look closer. These stories fuel the dream that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon a hidden treasure. What makes this even more compelling is how humble the coin appears. It doesn't shout wealth. It doesn't sparkle like gold or silver. It whispers its worth quietly, waiting for the right person to listen. The 1970 D Lincoln penny reminds us that rarity is not always about age alone. It's about circumstances, precision, and chance. It's about the exact moment metal met die, creating something slightly different from everything else around it. For collectors, owning such a coin is a badge of honor. It represents patience, knowledge, and sometimes a little luck. For newcomers, it's an invitation into a world where history, art, and value collide in the most unexpected ways. And let's be honest, there is something magical about knowing a single cent can change how we see everyday objects. It makes you want to check your change, revisit old collections, and maybe even slow down and appreciate the stories hidden in ordinary things. This coin is not just metal. It is time frozen in copper. It is the echo of 1970, preserved for future generations. It is proof that even in a mass-produced world, uniqueness still exists. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look at the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Remember that somewhere out there, a coin just like it has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and dreamers alike. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand. It feels light, ordinary, almost forgettable. You might have found it at the bottom of a drawer, mixed in with spare change, or resting quietly in an old jar that hasn't been opened in years. At first glance, it looks like just another penny. But what if this small coin carried a hidden story, a surprising legacy, and a value that could change the way you look at pocket change forever? Today, we are diving deep into the fascinating world of the United States of America 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that has quietly captured the attention of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. The early 1970s were a time of major transformation in the United States. The country was navigating economic uncertainty, social change, and shifting monetary policies. In 1971, something historic happened that altered the future of American currency. This was the year the United States officially ended the gold standard, changing how money itself was valued and understood. While headlines focused on paper currency and national policy, coins like the Lincoln 1-cent penny continued to be minted, circulating through everyday life, silently witnessing history. The Lincoln penny itself carries a powerful legacy. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first American coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1971, the familiar profile of Lincoln was already deeply ingrained in American culture. His calm expression, dignified posture, and timeless presence reminded citizens of unity, perseverance, and strength, even during uncertain times. Now, let's talk about the detail that makes this penny especially intriguing: the absence of a mint mark. A no-mint mark penny means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not include a mint mark on its coins during that era. Millions of pennies were struck there in 1971, flooding the nation with copper coins that passed from hand to hand without a second thought. Yet, among these countless pieces, certain examples stand apart in ways that most people would never expect. The composition of the 1971 Lincoln cent is another key part of its story. Made primarily of copper, with a small percentage of zinc, this penny represents the end of an era. Just a few years later, rising copper prices would force the U.S. Mint to change the metal content of pennies forever. That makes coins from this period some of the last true copper cents, adding to their desirability among collectors who appreciate both history and material value. What truly elevates the 1971 no-mint mark penny, however, is not just its age or composition, but the potential for rarity hidden within what seems ordinary. Coin collecting is a world where the smallest details can make the biggest difference. Subtle variations in strike quality, surface condition, and preservation can transform a common coin into an extraordinary one. A penny that never saw heavy circulation, that avoided scratches, stains, and wear, can become a prized artifact. Collectors carefully examine elements like Lincoln's hairlines, the sharpness of the lettering, and the clarity of the date. The reverse side, featuring the Lincoln Memorial, is equally important. Strong steps, crisp columns, and clean fields can significantly enhance a coin's appeal. When all these features align perfectly, the result is a coin that stands far above the rest. Another layer of fascination comes from the role of professional grading. Coins are often sent to expert grading services that evaluate their condition under magnification and assign a numerical grade. This process can dramatically affect a coin's market worth. A high-grade 1971 no-mint mark penny, preserved in near-perfect condition, becomes more than a piece of change. It becomes a certified collectible, backed by expert analysis and trusted by buyers worldwide. The psychology of collecting also plays a huge role in driving interest and value. People are drawn to the idea that something so small and overlooked could be incredibly important. There is a thrill in discovering that hidden treasures might already exist in your home. This emotional connection fuels demand, and demand fuels value. The 1971 Lincoln penny taps directly into that excitement. Historical context adds even more depth. Coins are time capsules. This penny circulated during a period of cultural shifts, technological growth, and economic change. It may have passed through the hands of factory workers, students, soldiers, or shopkeepers. Each coin carries invisible stories of daily life, commerce, and human connection. Owning such a piece is like holding a fragment of American history. Another reason this penny stands out is the growing awareness of rare high-grade examples. As more collectors enter the hobby and more coins are examined closely, standout specimens become increasingly recognized and celebrated. Once a coin achieves legendary status within the collecting community, its reputation alone can elevate its desirability. The 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has earned attention precisely because of how exceptional certain examples can be. The modern digital age has also transformed coin collecting. Online auctions, collector forums, and video platforms have introduced millions of people to the world of numismatics. Stories of rare pennies selling for astonishing amounts spark curiosity and inspire people to look more closely at their own collections. The 1971 penny often appears in these discussions, not because every example is valuable, but because the right one can be truly remarkable. Condition remains the ultimate deciding factor. A penny that looks brand new decades later is incredibly rare. Time is not kind to coins, especially those meant for everyday use. Surviving in pristine shape requires luck, careful handling, and sometimes simply being forgotten in the right place. That rarity of preservation is what separates ordinary coins from legendary ones. Collectors understand that value is not just about money. It's about history, craftsmanship, survival, and story. The 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny embodies all of these elements. It represents the closing chapter of copper cents, the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, and the unpredictable magic of collecting. So, the next time you come across a penny dated 1971, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look closely. Examine its surface, its shine, its details. Consider where it's been and what it represents. In the world of coins, sometimes the smallest pieces carry the biggest surprises. Imagine holding a tiny piece of copper-colored history in your hand, something so ordinary that millions of people pass it every day without a second glance, yet powerful enough to carry stories of a nation, an era, and the quiet possibility of hidden value. Today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about and misunderstood coins in American history, the United States of America 1976 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark. This is not just a coin, it is a time capsule, a witness to celebration, change, and curiosity that still fascinates collectors and everyday people alike. Picture the year 1976. The United States was celebrating 200 years of independence. Flags waved proudly, fireworks filled the sky, and patriotic spirit was everywhere. While special bicentennial designs appeared on quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins, the humble Lincoln cent quietly continued its classic design. No flashy drummer boy, no torch, no special reverse. Just Abraham Lincoln on the front, steady and familiar, and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Yet this simplicity is exactly what makes the 1976 no-mint mark penny so interesting. A no-mint mark penny means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. During that time, Philadelphia did not place a mint mark on 1-cent coins. Millions upon millions of these pennies were produced, flooding circulation across the country. People bought groceries with them, tossed them into jars, lost them under couch cushions, and dropped them into fountains. For decades, they were considered nothing more than pocket change. But coins have a funny way of surprising us. The Lincoln penny itself has always held a special place in American hearts. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 1976, the design was already iconic. Lincoln's calm profile symbolized unity and perseverance, while the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse quietly connected the president to the enduring ideals of the nation. So why does the 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny spark so much excitement today? The answer lies in condition, rarity within commonality, and the stories collectors love to chase. While most of these coins are only worth their face value, a tiny fraction stand out due to extraordinary preservation, striking quality, or unusual characteristics. These exceptional examples are where imagination meets reality. Collectors look closely at details most people never notice. The sharpness of Lincoln's hair and beard, the clarity of the date and lettering, the strength of the steps on the Lincoln Memorial, even the original color and luster of the copper surface matter. A coin that has never been worn by circulation, never scratched or dulled, can look almost magical, as if it just left the mint yesterday. Finding such a coin from 1976 is not easy, and that challenge is what fuels the hunt. Then, there is the thrill of errors and anomalies. Coins are mass-produced, and with mass production comes the possibility of mistakes. Slide-off center strikes, double details, unusual planchets, or other minting quirks can turn an ordinary penny into something extraordinary. Collectors spend hours examining their coins under magnification, hoping to spot that one detail that sets a coin apart from the rest. The 1976 no-mint mark penny also represents a bridge between eras. It was struck before major changes in penny composition took hold. It still carried the heavier copper feel that many people remember fondly. When you hold it, you are literally holding metal that has been part of American commerce for nearly half a century. That physical connection to the past adds emotional value beyond any price. What makes this coin especially attractive to YouTube audiences and collectors is its accessibility. Unlike ancient gold coins or rare silver dollars that few people will ever see in person, the 1976 Lincoln penny is something many viewers might already have at home. It could be sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old piggy bank. That creates instant excitement. The idea that something so small and common could potentially be worth far more than 1 cent sparks curiosity and hope. Stories circulate of people rediscovering coins they ignored for years, only to learn that condition and uniqueness can change everything. A penny pulled from circulation and preserved carefully can become a star of a collection. Even the act of searching through coins becomes an adventure, a modern-day treasure hunt that anyone can join. This is why the 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny continues to trend in conversations about coin values. It reminds us that value is not always obvious at first glance. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to look closely. Collectors often say that coins tell stories. This penny tells the story of a nation celebrating 2 centuries of independence, while still honoring a president who guided it through its darkest hours. It tells the story of everyday Americans using simple money to live their daily lives. And for a lucky few, it tells the story of discovery, when a forgotten coin suddenly becomes something remarkable. As you think about this penny, imagine the journey it may have taken. From the presses of the Philadelphia Mint, into the hands of a cashier, passed from pocket to pocket, may be tucked away and forgotten, and finally rediscovered decades later. Every scratch or pristine surface carries a chapter of that journey. For collectors, the excitement is not just about money. It is about connection, history, and the thrill of the search. The 1976 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny stands as a perfect example of how ordinary objects can become extraordinary when viewed through the right lens. Imagine holding a tiny piece of metal that once passed through countless hands, rang in cash registers during a historic celebration, and quietly witnessed a nation reflecting on 200 years of independence. This is not just a penny. This is the United States of America 1976 mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent, a coin that carries far more than its small size suggests. In today's story, we are diving deep into its history, its design, its mystery, and the reasons collectors around the world can't stop talking about it. To understand why the 1976 Lincoln penny matters, we first need to travel back in time. The year 1976 was a monumental moment for the United States. The bicentennial marked 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The entire country was wrapped in celebration. Parades filled the streets, fireworks lit up the skies, and patriotism was everywhere. Even everyday objects were infused with symbolic meaning, and coins were no exception. While some denominations received special reverse designs for the bicentennial, the Lincoln cent quietly continued its role as a workhorse of American commerce, minted in massive numbers and used by millions. The Denver Mint, identified by the small but powerful D mint mark, played a major role in producing pennies that year. These coins were struck to meet the heavy demand of daily transactions in a growing economy. On the surface, the 1976 Lincoln cent looks familiar, almost ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's dignified profile faces right on the obverse, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. This portrait, created by Victor David Brenner, has become one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics. It represents unity, resilience, and the enduring legacy of one of the nation's most respected presidents. But look closer. Really close. The magic of this coin lies in the details, the metal, the strike quality, and the tiny variations that separate a common pocket change penny from a collector's dream. The 1976 penny was made primarily of copper, just before the United States shifted toward a copper-plated zinc composition in the early 1980s. That copper content gives the coin a warm, rich tone that ages beautifully when preserved properly. For collectors, copper pennies from this era feel like the end of a classic chapter in American coinage. Condition is everything in the world of coins, and this is where the story gets truly exciting. Most 1976 pennies lived rough lives. They were tossed into jars, dropped on sidewalks, scraped across counters, and slowly worn down by time. Finding one today is easy. Finding one in exceptional condition is another story entirely. Coins that show sharp details, strong luster, clean fields, and minimal marks stand out dramatically. These are the examples that make collectors' hearts beat faster. Then, there is the thrill of mint errors and rare striking anomalies. Some 1976 Lincoln cents are known to exhibit unusual characteristics that occurred during the minting process. These can include off-center strikes, double die features, or other subtle imperfections that transform a simple penny into a unique artifact. Errors like these are accidental, unpredictable, and impossible to recreate, which is exactly why they are so desirable. Each error coin tells a story of a split-second moment inside the mint when something went slightly off script, leaving behind a permanent signature of rarity. Another factor that elevates the 1976 Lincoln cent is grading. Professional coin grading services examine coins under magnification, evaluating strike, surface preservation, and eye appeal. High-grade examples: especially those that appear almost flawless, are extraordinarily scarce. Think about it. Out of millions of pennies minted, only a tiny fraction survive in pristine condition decades later. These coins often spent their entire lives protected, perhaps set aside by a sharp-eyed collector who recognized their potential early on. Collectors are drawn to this penny not just for its physical qualities, but for what it represents. It is a bridge between everyday life and national history. It reminds us that even during a year of grand celebration, ordinary objects continue to quietly serve their purpose. A child buying candy, a commuter paying for coffee, a shopkeeper making change, all unknowingly participated in history by using these coins. The Lincoln cent has always had a special place in American culture. It was the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person, breaking away from the tradition of symbolic figures. By 1976, Lincoln's image had already been a constant presence for generations. That familiarity adds emotional value. When collectors hold a 1976 penny, they are not just holding copper. They are holding nostalgia, memory, and continuity. There is also an educational aspect that makes this coin fascinating. It teaches new collectors about mint marks, composition changes, grading standards, and the importance of preservation. Many seasoned numismatists will tell you that their passion began with a simple Lincoln cent. The 1976 penny often serves as a gateway, a starting point that leads to a lifelong love of coin collecting. What truly sets certain examples apart is the story behind their survival. Imagine a freshly minted penny in 1976, shining bright with a fiery copper glow. Instead of entering circulation, it is placed into a roll, stored in a drawer, and forgotten. Years pass. Decades pass. When it finally reemerges, it looks almost exactly as it did on the day it was struck. That kind of time capsule effect is rare, and collectors cherish it deeply. Demand plays a powerful role as well. As more people become interested in numismatics, competition for top-quality coins intensifies. The Lincoln cent series is one of the most widely collected in the world. When collectors seek to complete high-grade sets, they often discover that certain dates and mint marks are surprisingly difficult to find in elite condition. The 1976 penny is one of those sleeper coins that can suddenly command attention when the right example appears. There is something poetic about the idea that a coin once considered nearly worthless can become a star. It challenges our assumptions about value. It reminds us that rarity is not always about age alone, but about survival, condition, and story. The 1976 Lincoln cent proves that even modern-era coins can rise to extraordinary heights under the right circumstances. As you listen to this story, you might be wondering about the true worth of such a coin. The answer is not simple, because value depends on many factors coming together perfectly. When history, condition, rarity, and collector demand align, the results can be astonishing. This is where excitement turns into awe, and curiosity turns into inspiration. So next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Look at it carefully. Think about where it's been, what it has seen, and what secrets it might hold. Somewhere out there, a 1976 Lincoln cent exists that defies expectations, a coin that has transcended its humble origins and become a symbol of hidden treasure in plain sight. Imagine holding a small copper-colored coin in your hand. It feels light, almost ordinary. You might even think it's the kind of penny you'd toss into a jar and forget about. But sometimes, history hides in plain sight, and the smallest coins can carry the biggest stories. Today, we're diving deep into one of those fascinating stories, centered around a very specific coin that has captured the imagination of collectors across the United States and beyond. This is the story of the United States of America 1979 mint mark Lincoln 1 cent penny, a coin that looks humble at first glance, yet carries mystery, history, and surprising value. The Lincoln 1-cent penny is one of the most recognizable coins in American history. For generations, it has passed through millions of hands, used to buy candy, newspapers, and everyday essentials. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By the time 1979 arrived, the Lincoln penny was already deeply woven into American culture. It wasn't just money. It was tradition, history, and national identity pressed into metal. Now let's travel back to the year 1979. The United States was going through a period of transition. Inflation was rising, gas prices were a major concern, and American pockets were filled with coins that were worth less in buying power than ever before. Despite this, the U.S. Mint continued producing pennies in massive quantities. Among those pennies was one struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small but powerful D Mint mark. That single letter, tucked beneath the date, would later become the focus of intense interest among collectors. At first glance, the 1979 D Lincoln cent looks just like many others. On the front, you see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, dignified and calm, designed by Victor David Brenner. The inscriptions feel almost timeless: "In God we trust," "Liberty," and the date. Flip the coin over, and you're greeted by the Lincoln Memorial, a design that symbolized unity, remembrance, and respect for one of America's greatest presidents. Millions upon millions of these coins were struck, and for most people, they were nothing more than spare change. But in the world of coin collecting, rarity isn't always about how many coins were made. It's about condition, errors, unique characteristics, and historical context. This is where the 1979 D penny begins to separate itself from the ordinary. While the Denver Mint produced a large number of pennies that year, only a very small percentage survived in exceptional condition. Even fewer displayed the kind of striking quality, surface preservation, and visual appeal that serious collectors hunt for. Collectors look closely at details most people would never notice. They study the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the lettering, and the tiniest marks on the coin surface. They examine the color, whether it's a rich red tone or has faded into brown over time. They analyze how the coin was struck, checking for full details on the Lincoln Memorial and clean, undisturbed fields. In this microscopic world, perfection is rare, and rarity drives value. Another layer of intrigue comes from minting anomalies. Coins are mass-produced objects, and sometimes things go wrong. A slight misalignment, an unusual die condition, or a striking irregularity can transform a common penny into a collector's dream. The 1979 D Lincoln cent has been studied intensely for these kinds of unusual traits. When a coin shows something different, something unexpected, it immediately stands out. Collectors love stories, and mint errors create some of the most compelling ones. The Denver Mint itself adds to the appeal. Known for its high production numbers and consistent quality, coins from Denver are often seen as reliable. That's why when an exceptional or unusual coin emerges from this mint, it grabs attention. It challenges expectations. A near-perfect or extraordinary 1979 D penny becomes proof that even in a year of mass production, something special can slip through unnoticed. Over time, the hobby of coin collecting has grown into a serious market. Auctions, grading services, and collectors around the world compete for the finest examples. Coins are no longer just money. They are investments, artifacts, and pieces of art. Professional grading services carefully evaluate coins, assigning them grades that reflect their condition and authenticity. For a 1979 D Lincoln penny, achieving the highest grades is extremely difficult. That difficulty is exactly what fuels its desirability. What makes this story even more exciting is the idea that these coins once circulated freely. They passed through cash registers, wallets, and piggy banks. Someone might have received one as change at a grocery store without giving it a second thought. The possibility that something so valuable once lived such an ordinary life is what captures people's imagination. It's the ultimate hidden treasure story. Collectors often talk about the thrill of the hunt, searching through rolls of pennies, old jars, or inherited collections in hopes of finding something extraordinary. The 1979 D. Lincoln set represents that hope. It reminds people that history and value can be hiding right under their noses. Every coin tells a story, but some stories are louder than others. The Lincoln penny also carries emotional weight. Abraham Lincoln symbolizes unity, resilience, and leadership. Owning a coin that bears his image, especially one with special significance, feels like holding a small piece of American history. When that history intersects with rarity and condition, the result is something truly powerful. In the world of numismatics. As years pass, fewer high-quality examples remain. Coins get scratched, worn down, or lost forever. Time is not kind to copper, and preserving a penny in pristine condition for decades is no easy task. That's why the finest examples become legends. They are snapshots of the moment they were minted, frozen in time while the world changed around them. The market responds to stories like this. When collectors recognize the rarity and significance of a coin, demand grows. Auctions become competitive. Prices rise. What was once overlooked becomes celebrated. The 1979 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny stands as a reminder that value is not always obvious. Sometimes it takes knowledge, patience, and passion to see what others miss. Imagine holding something so ordinary that millions of people have touched it, ignored it, spit it without a second thought. A single penny. Small, copper-colored, light in your hand, almost invisible in your pocket. Now imagine that same penny quietly hiding a story that could completely change how you look at money forever. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern coins ever struck in the United States, the 1991 D. Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that appears simple on the surface but carries mystery, rarity, and unbelievable potential beneath its modest design. At first glance, the 1991 Lincoln penny doesn't scream importance. It looks familiar, comforting, and almost boring to the untrained eye. Abraham Lincoln's strong profile face is right, calm and dignified, just as it has since 1909. Above his head is the word liberty, to the left the familiar phrase "In God We Trust," and beneath his shoulder the date 1991. But look closer. Just beneath that date sits a tiny letter, the D Mint mark, quietly revealing that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. That tiny letter changes everything. The early 1990s were a fascinating time in American coinage. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies each year, flooding circulation with Lincoln cents to keep up with daily commerce. In 1991 alone, the Denver Mint struck well over 4 billion pennies. That number alone makes you think rarity is impossible. How could a coin produced in such massive numbers ever be valuable? That's where the magic of numismatics comes in, because rarity isn't just about how many were made, it's about how many survived in extraordinary condition, or how many were born different. The Lincoln 1-cent penny of this era was primarily composed of zinc with a thin copper plating, a change that began in the early 1980s. This shift made pennies cheaper to produce, but also more vulnerable to flaws. The copper plating was extremely thin, and even the smallest mistake during the minting process could result in dramatic errors. Blisters, bubbles, exposed zinc, weak strikes, or improper plating all created coins that slipped through quality control and entered circulation unnoticed. These errors are where collectors' hearts start racing. But errors are only one part of the story. Condition plays an equally powerful role. Most 1991 D pennies were used immediately. They were dropped into cash registers, scraped against keys, tossed into jars, and slowly worn down by everyday life. Finding one today that looks exactly like it did the moment it left the mint is incredibly difficult. When a coin survives untouched, with razor-sharp details, blazing original luster, and zero wear, it enters a completely different universe of value. Professional grading services evaluate coins under intense magnification. They inspect the smallest details, from the texture of Lincoln's hair to the sharpness of the lettering to the presence of microscopic marks. Coins that achieve the highest grades are astonishingly rare, especially for modern pennies that were never intended to be preserved. A perfect example from 1991 with a D mint mark is not just uncommon, it is legendary. Collectors are drawn to this coin not just because of potential value, but because of what it represents. It is a snapshot of American history at the end of the Cold War era, a time when the country was shifting culturally, politically, and economically. Every Lincoln penny carries the legacy of one of America's greatest presidents, but this one also carries the story of modern minting challenges, mass production, and the accidental creation of treasures hidden in plain sight. What makes the hunt even more thrilling is that these coins are still out there. They could be sitting in old jars, forgotten drawers, inherited collections, or even loose change passed down unknowingly. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, the 1991 D penny is close enough to our time that discovery is still possible. That sense of possibility is what fuels collectors day after day. Some collectors focus on die varieties, subtle differences in the way the dies were engraved or wore down over time. Slight doubling in letters, unusual spacing, or unique textures can make one coin stand out from billions of others. These variations are often invisible without magnification, yet they can transform an ordinary penny into a numismatic superstar. It's like finding a fingerprint on history. There is also a powerful emotional element to this coin. For many people, Lincoln pennies are the first coins they ever collected. They're often associated with childhood, coin folders, and the excitement of filling empty slots. Discovering that one of those humble coins might be worth a life-changing amount creates a deep emotional connection that goes beyond metal and numbers. It's nostalgia mixed with hope. In the world of coin collecting, modern rarities are often the most misunderstood. People assume only ancient gold or silver coins matter. But modern coins, especially those with extreme rarity and top condition, can command staggering attention. Auction houses, private collectors, and investors all compete fiercely for the finest known examples. When a coin reaches that level, it's no longer just a penny. It becomes a symbol of perfection, survival, and chance. The 1991 D Lincoln 1-cent penny stands at the crossroads of mass production and extreme rarity. It reminds us that value is not always obvious, that sometimes the most extraordinary things were the simplest disguises. It teaches patience, curiosity, and the importance of looking twice at what we think we already understand. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Turn it over. Check the date. Look for that tiny D mint mark. Examine its surface, its shine, its details. Because history has proven that even the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprise. Imagine holding a tiny copper-colored coin that has passed silently through countless hands, resting in pockets, jars, and cash registers, never once demanding attention. At first glance, it feels ordinary, almost invisible. But sometimes history hides in plain sight, and value whispers instead of shouting. Today, we're diving deep into one such coin, the United States of America 1997 D mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a piece that many people overlook, yet collectors can't stop talking about. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you'll understand why this humble penny has sparked curiosity, excitement, and serious discussion in the world of coin collecting. The Lincoln 1-cent penny is more than just spare change. Since its introduction in 1909, it has carried the face of Abraham Lincoln, honoring one of the most respected presidents in American history. By the time 1997 arrived, the penny had already become a symbol of everyday America, a coin that quietly connected generations. The 1997 D penny was struck at the Denver Mint, a facility known for producing massive quantities of coins with consistent quality and sharp detail. That small D mint mark beneath the date may seem insignificant, but for collectors, it is a crucial identifier that opens the door to deeper stories and potential value. In 1997, the United States Mint was producing pennies primarily for circulation, not for collectors. Millions upon millions of coins rolled out of the Denver Mint that year, designed to be spent, saved, or forgotten. The composition at the time was copper-plated zinc, giving the coin its familiar warm tone while keeping production costs low. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's profile appears dignified and timeless, while the reverse showcases the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been in use since 1959. This combination of history and familiarity is exactly what makes collectors look twice, because sometimes rarity isn't about age alone, but about condition, detail, and unique characteristics. What makes the 1997 D Lincoln penny especially interesting is not that every example is rare, but that certain examples stand out dramatically. Coin collecting is a world where small differences can mean huge changes in worth. A penny pulled from circulation, scratched and worn, may be worth only face value. But one preserved in exceptional condition, with crisp lines, brilliant luster, and no signs of wear, becomes something else entirely. Collectors use grading systems to evaluate coins, examining everything from the sharpness of Lincoln's hair to the clarity of the lettering and the shine of the fields. When a coin survives decades looking almost exactly as it did the day it was struck, its appeal skyrockets. Beyond condition, minting quirks play a massive role in value. The Denver Mint is known for efficiency, but no mint is perfect. Occasionally, mistakes happen during production, and these errors can turn an ordinary penny into a collector's dream. Off-center strikes, doubled dies, unusual planchet issues, or striking anomalies can all dramatically affect desirability. In the case of the 1997 D penny, collectors have searched for examples with unusual characteristics that set them apart from standard issues. These are the coins that get people talking, the ones that fuel online searches, auction listings, and late-night conversations among collectors. Another reason this penny captures attention is its place in modern collecting. Many people assume that only ancient or extremely old coins hold serious value, but modern coins can surprise you. The 1997 D Lincoln penny sits at an interesting crossroads, old enough to feel historical, yet modern enough that high-grade examples still exist. This creates competition among collectors who want the best of the best. When multiple collectors chase the same exceptional coin, prices can climb quickly, driven by demand rather than age alone. There's also an emotional element tied to this coin. For many Americans, pennies from the 1990s bring back memories of childhood, school lunch change, or piggy banks tucked away in closets. That nostalgia adds another layer of appeal. Collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying stories, memories, and a tangible connection to the past. The 1997 D penny becomes a bridge between everyday life and the fascinating world of numismatics. Authentication and grading services have also played a role in elevating interest. When a coin is professionally graded and encapsulated, it gains credibility in the market. Collectors trust that the coin has been evaluated fairly and consistently. High-grade examples of the 1997 D Lincoln penny, especially those with remarkable eye appeal, stand out in auction catalogs and online listings. These coins become benchmarks, examples that others compare their own finds against, hoping they've discovered something special. Let's not forget the thrill of the hunt. One of the most exciting aspects of coin collecting is the idea that treasure could be hiding in plain sight. The 1997 D penny is a perfect example of this possibility. It's a coin that many people have handled without a second thought, yet the right example can transform that ordinary moment into something extraordinary. This sense of discovery keeps collectors searching through rolls, jars, and inherited collections, always hoping to uncover a standout piece. Market interest is another key factor. Coin values are shaped by trends, collector enthusiasm, and rarity within specific categories. As more collectors focus on modern Lincoln cents, attention naturally turns to standout years and mint marks. The 1997 D penny benefits from this spotlight, especially when discussions revolve around top condition specimens and unusual features. When interest grows, so does competition, and competition often drives value higher. What truly fascinates people about this coin is the contrast between its face value and its potential worth. A penny is supposed to be the smallest unit of currency, something easily overlooked. Yet, in the collector world, that tiny coin can represent patience, knowledge, and timing. Understanding why a specific 1997 D penny stands out requires learning about minting processes, grading standards, and market behavior. This educational journey is part of what makes collecting so rewarding. As you think about this coin, imagine the moment it was struck at the Denver Mint, fresh and shining, never knowing the path it would take. Decades later, it might sit in a protective holder, admired under bright lights, discussed in forums, and showcased in collections. That transformation from everyday object to prized collectible is what makes the story of the 1997 D Lincoln penny so compelling. So next time you see a penny, especially one from the late 1990s, take a closer look. Examine the details, the shine, the mint mark. You might just be holding a small piece of American history with a story far bigger than its size. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand. It looks ordinary. You've probably seen it 1,000 times. It might even be sitting quietly in a jar somewhere in your house, mixed with spare change, forgotten and ignored. But what if I told you that this simple-looking Lincoln 1-cent penny from the year 2002 could be one of the most fascinating modern coins ever produced in the United States of America? A coin with no mint mark, a coin surrounded by mystery, rarity, and surprising value. A coin that has turned everyday pocket change into a collector's dream. Today, we are diving deep into the story, the history, the features, and the true worth of the United States of America 2002 no mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. This is not just a coin. This is a silent witness to American history, a symbol of craftsmanship, and for some lucky individuals, a life-changing discovery. The Lincoln 1-cent penny has always held a special place in American culture. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By the time the 2002 penny was minted, the design had already become iconic. The familiar portrait of President Lincoln on the front had been studied, admired, and collected for generations. Yet, even within such a well-known series, certain years and variations stand out in extraordinary ways. The 2002 Lincoln cent was struck during a period of transition and technological precision in the U.S. Mint. Most of these coins were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally does not use a mint mark on pennies. That absence of a small letter beneath the date is what collectors refer to as no mint mark. To the average person, this detail means nothing. To a collector, it can mean everything. This penny is composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, a format that began in the early 1980s. While many collectors prefer older solid copper cents, the 2002 no mint mark penny holds its own appeal due to its minting quality, potential errors, and condition rarity. Millions were struck, yes, but only a tiny fraction survived in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, scratches, or discoloration. What truly elevates this coin beyond the ordinary is its potential for perfection. In the world of coin collecting, condition is king. A penny that looks flawless under magnification, with sharp details, original luster, and no visible defects, becomes something extraordinary. These are the coins that grading services label as top-tier specimens. And once a coin reaches that elite category, its value can skyrocket beyond imagination. Collectors carefully examine the 2002 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent for strike quality. The sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the lettering "In God We Trust," the boldness of the date, and the clean lines of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse all play a role. Any weakness in these areas can reduce value, while exceptional strength can increase it dramatically. Another layer of fascination comes from mint errors and varieties. While not all 2002 pennies have errors, certain examples show striking anomalies that capture collector attention. Off-center strikes, die cracks, doubled elements, or unusual surface textures can transform a simple penny into a rare collectible. These errors tell a story of the minting process itself, moments when machinery and metal didn't align perfectly, leaving behind a permanent and valuable mark. The no-mint mark aspect also fuels intrigue. Many people mistakenly believe a missing mint mark is an error. In this case, it is intentional, but that misunderstanding often leads to curiosity. That curiosity brings people into the world of coin collecting. It makes them look closer. And sometimes, looking closer is all it takes to uncover something remarkable. What makes this coin especially appealing to YouTube audiences is its relatability. This is not an ancient gold coin locked away in a museum. This is a penny. Something you might have held as a child. Something you might still find in your pocket today. That connection makes the story powerful. It reminds us that value can hide in plain sight. Collectors who specialize in modern coins understand how difficult it is to find flawless examples. Modern pennies are mass-produced at incredible speeds, often resulting in minor imperfections. A truly perfect 2002 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent is exceptionally rare. When one surfaces, it creates excitement across the numismatic community. Auctions heat up. Bidders compete. And the final result can shock even seasoned collectors. Beyond money, this coin represents patience and knowledge. People who take the time to learn about minting processes, historical context, and grading standards are the ones who recognize value before others do. This penny rewards curiosity. It rewards attention to detail. And it rewards those who understand that rarity is not always about age, but about condition, demand, and story. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse of the coin adds another layer of symbolism. Introduced in 1959, it honors one of America's most important monuments. The design subtly includes a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making him the only U.S. president to appear twice on the same coin. In high-grade examples, this detail is crisp and beautiful, showcasing the artistry involved in even the smallest denomination. Over time, coins like the 2002 no-mint Mark penny gain recognition not just as currency, but as historical artifacts. They capture a moment in American manufacturing, economics, and design. They reflect the era in which they were produced. And they remind us that even modern objects can become treasures. For YouTube viewers, stories like this spark imagination. They encourage people to check their change, to learn something new, to see everyday objects differently. They prove that value is not always obvious at first glance. Sometimes, it's hidden beneath years of neglect, waiting for the right person to notice. So the next time you come across a Lincoln 1 cent penny dated 2002, don't dismiss it. Look closely. Examine the details. Think about where it came from and what it represents. Because in the right condition, with the right characteristics, this humble coin can stand among the most impressive modern collectibles.